Okay, so we're straight into episode 6 of the X-Files. That's us a quarter of the way through it now. And we are on the episode entitled Shadow.
Shadows.
Shadows.
Yeah, within us.
There we go. And the scene opens with someone crying in an office. It mentions over it that someone's dead, it's a suicide. And a plaque moves on the desk, which leads you straight in to go poltergeist. Yeah. Or it did in my opinion again.
Yeah, so we've got this young-ish woman, Lauren, and as you say, this guy, Howard Graves, she's clearing out his office. He's the guy who's died, and she's the one who's crying. And we get the perkiest ever wage clerk that I've ever seen, who just I've never seen anyone so happy to give someone their wage slip. I don't know, she's really like friendly with her, and she appears again later in the episode, again delivering a final wage slip, and it's just a random character that
but she really does have a comforting touch about her, because she does say it's been 2 weeks. Or something along those lines.
Get over it. Come on.
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks. There's your pay slip. So the girl takes her pay check or whatever and goes to the ATM to deposit it, and is attacked.
2 muggers.
And then and then you have 2 of the nicest dressed homeless people again. So going down the street, and I took it as looking for a place to stay. When they spot something in a fire escape up above, they attempt to pull down a ladder and somehow dislodge a body that's 3 or 4 metres away from them, and it falls down, and then the ladder falls down with another body attached to that, which is 2 convenient placements for bodies.
It's like they've been stuck there by Freddy Krueger or someone, or Jason Voorhees, more to the point.
Yeah, absolutely. Or by some overzealous production designer who's decided this is the best place for them to sit.
I don't understand how they don't see the body that falls on the skip. I'll give them, but the body that's on the ladder, as she's tugging on that ladder, I don't understand how they cannot see that guy.
Yeah, and even up through the metal, it's got gaps in it. You can see through it as well. You're going to tell if there's 2 fairly large guys up there.
Yeah, he can manage to look halfway up a building and say, hey, I know a good place to crash. Yet they can't see the body that is just above their heads.
Now we're going to jump ahead in the episode as well. We notice later on it's a poltergeist that's taking care of these 2 guys. But it's a poltergeist with a conscience, because not only has it killed these 2 guys, but it moved them out the way so it doesn't just scare anybody going by. It's almost as if it's trying to hide its tracks. Which it does make you wonder a little bit. So then after that we're straight on to the theme and the main titles, and we move on to, I didn't know what was happening here. Mulder and Scully going down a dark hallway.
They're invited to see the bodies, basically, of these 2 guys that were mugged, because there's some weird electrical activity on them, and these 2 agents, these bizarre people who just remain tight-lipped throughout this entire scene. They're the ones who invite Mulder and Scully to come and take a look at these bodies because of their work in the X-Files. So they want to know if they've seen this before, if there's anything they can tell them about it. But when Mulder asks them any questions, they just remain tight-lipped. They just don't even speak. They just stare blankly at him. And you can really understand why Mulder gets quite annoyed with it. But you can't quite understand why they would even bother bringing them in if they're not going to answer any questions, because Mulder can't give them information until they give him information. So they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot right off the bat.
But it's not as if he's asking like any crazy questions either. You know, how long have they been here?
Yeah.
How did they travel? How long was their travel here? It's not anything you would think would give away whatever information you think they may be holding.
And by doing this as well, one, they're the ones who've ended up putting Mulder onto the case. And two, by not giving him any information, when Mulder later on in the episode kind of screws up their investigation, that's their fault.
They almost bring in this guy who's really into the weird and wacky. Show him something weird and wacky and give him no information. He's got a tenacity about him, and they must know that. Surely they must know that. So they must know that he's not going to let it lie.
No, he's got a reputation.
Yeah.
We've learned, through many of these early episodes, we've learned all about the fact that Mulder has this reputation, and you're just going to throw this guy a puzzle to solve and expect him not to try and solve it.
So you've got. Does it mention in this scene that the guy's throats have been crushed from the inside?
Yes, it does. And we also, Mulder rather ingeniously manages to take their thumbprint on his glasses.
Oh yeah, which was genius.
Yeah, I thought that was a good move. And he begins to explain his first kind of thoughts on the subject, because Scully doesn't buy that he doesn't know anything. He says once again that he's got X-Files that deal with this stuff, so technically it's their case as well. But in this one, at least he does say that it's not all in the one X-File. Yeah,
he's got several files.
Yeah.
Nothing with the complete information like this.
But we get a nice bit of a film reference from Scully, one of two in this episode actually, because Mulder says that at this point he thinks it's psychomagnetic manipulation, and Scully's kind of like, you mean what Carrie got from the prom? Do you mean when Carrie, when Carrie got even at the prom, I should say. So yeah, it's a nice little kind of film reference there. But like I say, it seems like in this episode, every time Mulder brings a new theory up, Scully's got some kind of film reference to throw at him, and we'll get into the second one later. But yeah, nice little exchange, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we move on to the girl who returns to work and asks to speak to the boss, and when she gets told no, seemingly makes a cup of coffee spill onto the receptionist. The kind of snarky receptionist, let's face it. Nobody's ever nice in the X-Files, are they? They're always just kind of twisted and bitter. Can I have a moment of his time, a minute, please? Yeah, sure, you can have it tomorrow at 3 o'clock. But when making the cup spill, the boss comes out, and the boss takes her into the office to have that quiet word, where she asks, where we find out that her name's Lauren, and we find out that she was the receptionist for Howard Graves, and they had a close relationship.
Yeah, I mean, like, we knew all this from the opening scene anyway, but we get basically she wants to hand her 2 weeks' notice in, and he, at this point, given what we later know once we've seen the rest of the episode, at this point his response should be, by all means, there's your notice, see ya, bye. That's that, let her go. But he makes the biggest dumbass move, which is to make some kind of weird move on her, to be kind of aggressive to her. Not like the first of a couple of times in this episode actually that he does that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure at first whether it was an aggressive move or a forced sexual flirtation on his behalf. For that, it was kind of duplicitous in that nature. I didn't know what it was going to be.
It was really pervy, wasn't it? He came across as the old pervy boss, but it's like, it's only because of a scene we get later on in the episode that we know actually what he's doing here in this scene, which is he's trying to intimidate her so that she doesn't blab. But you know what? She's leaving. Just let her go. End of. But by antagonising her, I mean, obviously he doesn't know about Howard Graves coming back as a poltergeist, but surely by antagonising her, you're just going to push her into giving the information she has to the right people.
So the fingerprints that Mulder has stole leads to a man in Philadelphia, and which leads him to Philadelphia itself, where an officer shows Mulder and Scully the murder scene of where the two gentlemen were found.
Well, first of all, it's just important to note that these muggers are part of an extremist group called the Ustavan or something. Basically, some like the Islamic terrorists of 1993. They don't actually say they're Islamic, but they're an extremist group anyway. That's all they say.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So so what their connection is to this woman Lauren is part of the mystery of what's going on, really. But yeah, like you say, Mulder spots a cash machine and thinks, "Hey, up, let's check the footage." Again, showing how dumb these muggers are, that they attack this girl right in front of a cash machine.
And it jumps straight into the ATM video, and they see the woman being attacked, but they also spot a ghostly figure in the background that's not quite in focus.
Yeah, it's not in focus at all.
No.
It's literally like a white kind of
Smear.
blur. Yeah, it's a white smear. And I understand how Mulder thinks it's a ghost. That's his first kind of port of call. But what I don't understand is what happens in the next scene when they go to see Lauren and question her. And Scully hands her that picture and says, "Do you recognise this person?" No, funnily enough, I don't. It looks like a smear on the photo.
Yeah.
I have to say, I don't know anyone who looks like a smear.
But she doesn't do that. She looks at it and she's like, I do know that person.
Yeah. It's almost like some recognition there, isn't there? But I don't think it's recognition of the visual image so much as kind of she's starting to twig what's going on. The fact that there is this blurred kind of thing on the picture, she knows that these men were suddenly kind of attacked by something that couldn't be seen. So the fact that there is this thing on the photo, I guess, would confirm her... Well, what she'd seen, because maybe she didn't even know if what she'd seen was all in her head or what, because,
Yeah, so she lies to the FBI and says that she'd managed to get away from these guys, and Mulder and Scully just kind of leave it at that, and then they leave the house to have what I thought was just going to be a typical exposition scene, and because it feels kind of clunky again, because they pretty much just describe what they've just seen. What she said. Do you know she's packing up? They say silly things like that, which they're doing. Then they jump in the car, and then lo and behold, Christine takes over as the car locks itself in and reverses back down the street.
yeah.
Only to be rammed by another car and into an embankment where you can quite clearly see the stunt people in the car who look absolutely nothing like the actors.
Yeah. I think it would have been a perfect moment as well for Scully to throw in another film reference. She could have alluded to Christine, I think, in that scene.
But other than that, it's a pretty good scene.
Yeah.
And then it cuts straight into the garage where Mulder is just filling in Scully, and the car's like brand new. There's nothing wrong with it. The lights are still going. That's from an electromagnetic charge, as he says.
Yeah, even though the key's not in the ignition, the lights are just they're on. And this is when Mulder gives his theory that now he thinks it's a poltergeist. This is when Scully says, "They're here," which again is another film reference. So Scully's showing that she's quite knowledgeable on a bit of a cinephile on the quiet, I think. I like the reaction, actually, on both Scully and Mulder's face when the car finally dies. Mulder picks his jacket up off the bonnet and then the lights finally go out.
Yeah.
And you see Mulder, he kind of thinks that's again, Mulder's kind of turned on by that. Scully's like, Oh, grief! Kind of eye roll. But
I'll never hear the end of this.
yeah, that's exactly it. From there, we have Mulder and Scully kind of spying on Lauren, just watching her, and they see her getting all bent out of shape because somebody is removing Howard Graves' name off his parking space. So she obviously thinks this is too soon, gets a bit upset by it, and Mulder and Scully witness that.
Yeah, I had a major problem with this scene.
Okay.
And it was in the most mundane thing again. I seem to latch on to the silly little things that have no point. This guy had the stencil out to stencil on the new guy's name, and hadn't he even tried to remove the old person's name yet? Surely he's going to give that a couple of coats of white paint before he tries to paint a new name over it. But he doesn't. He conveniently leaves that old name up there so that Mulder and Scully can go, I wonder what he's got to do with it. Let's research this Howard Graves guy. That painter just wasn't doing his job.
Maybe the new guy that they'd hired was called Howard Gravesend. So all he's doing is just going to put a stencil over the old name with the extra bit at the end.
Which would make sense, but I actually checked out the name on the stencil. It was Tom something.
That's so sad.
Like I say, I just latch onto these things that have no bearing on the episode whatsoever.
We go from there to what is probably my favourite scene in the episode, just because of how ludicrous it is. It's something right out of Friday the 13th.
Oh, I love it. I know exactly where you're going.
They go to a graveyard. They follow Lauren to the graveyard. She goes to visit Howard Graves' tomb, basically his grave. She's just basically following all his cliches in the book here, talking over his grave. And Mulder and Scully go over, take a look, and notice that there's two names there on the grave. One being Howard's daughter, and so Mulder and Scully see this man digging in the graveyard. He's obviously the caretaker of the grave. And so they ask, is there any kind of record of who this person might be? And he's like proper stereotypical old man, kind of knows everything. You kind of half expect him to say, "Don't be going into them there woods."
Yep.
But he's just like, yeah, I know everything there is to know about the people buried here, sir. And he just reels off this information. He's like Basil Exposition, and they make no excuse to try and cover up the fact that this guy is just Basil Exposition. It's
as if the actors came on set and he's been like, how do you want me to play this? Do you want me to play this as somebody that just happens to know this information or that? And the directors went, have you ever seen a bad guy in Scooby-Doo? That is exactly what I want from you. I mean, I've actually got in my notes, I don't know if you can read it, but it's like somehow the weirdo knows every detail about every grave. Stop. Arrest this guy. Arrest this guy.
Oh man, yeah.
I don't care what case they're on. They just stop. This guy's done something.
I just put graveside dodgy know-it-all because he just knows everything that they need to know. But like I literally think about the guy from the first Friday the 13th film who, for no reason at all, just randomly comes up to the kids and just says,
the guy in the bike?
Yeah, and it's just like, don't go in there, people will die when they go there. And he's just like, he comes, gives a warning, and then walks off. And it's just like, literally that's all he's there for.
Yeah. The kind of guy who walks up to the group of kids and just goes, you're all going to die.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. It is by far and away the best scene in this episode.
It's the funniest, I'll give it that.
Yeah.
So from there, Scully writes her report as usual. We get like this voiceover of her writing her report, while Mulder develops the photos that he took when they were staking out Lauren. And in one of these photos, we get, once it's been enhanced by a specialist, we get Howard Graves standing over the shoulder of Lauren. Scully obviously thinking that this has been a death-baking plot, that Howard Graves is still alive. But they go to see this coroner with the blankest expression on anyone's face that you could possibly think of, who basically looks straight into camera and says, "Howard Graves is most definitely dead."
Yeah. And I like her performance. The whole "I can't be bothered" to use to. I really just can't. I've done my job right. I've done nothing wrong. Go away.
I'm pretty sure this woman pops up a couple more times throughout the X-Files, playing different characters, because she's just got that stony-faced, dry kind of "I cannot be arsed" look about her. So I think she's that go-to girl when they want that kind of character. But yeah, so she basically says how there's no way Howard Graves could be alive. His body, his organs have been donated for transplants and whatnot. And does this go anywhere? I can't remember if this.
They still have some part of his body stored, so they're able to do DNA tests to find out if it was
yes,
him.
Of course, yeah, that's it. So they know for sure that it was Howard Graves' body.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it goes to an office party, and I'm not sure whether it was just a general party or if it was Lauren's leaving party.
Yeah, I wrote that in my notes as well. Is this just a normal kind of office party, or is it her leaving party, or what? Yeah, like you say, there's nothing to kind of...
Because if it's her leaving party, then surely she would be the centre of attention and wouldn't be able to just walk about without anybody coming up to her, type of thing. Because she manages to get away from the party and edge her way into the boss's office.
Yeah, Robert.
No, it's Howard's office.
She takes one last look into Howard's office, doesn't she? And then Robert Dolan, the creepy boss guy, follows her back in to essentially do a repeat of the scene that we saw them together in before. He threatens her some more, only this time he basically says, "I know that you know. Keep your mouth shut if you know what's good for you."
I've got a really articulate note here that just says everything. Creepy partner guy is creepy. So.
Pretty much, yeah. That's essentially his function in this episode.
But she does the one thing you shouldn't do, and says, "I know what Howard told you," or he says, "I know what Howard told you," and she says, "I know you killed him."
Yeah. Because we left out a scene actually, which is when she has this vision. She wakes up during the night and she goes to the bathroom, and that's actually one of the best scenes in the episode because it's really well shot. It's really, I think it's really well staged, and it's quite creepy. It does send a chill down my spine when she pulls back that shower curtain, and then you just see the blood where the wrists would be, and it's genuinely creepy. It's a genuinely creepy moment in this episode.
Yeah, that is a stunning image. Absolutely,
really good. And just again, like as well, the sound that they use, where you hear Howard's voice, kind of, he's pleading with these guys, begging not to be killed, like, and his voice is dead echoey, like, you know, because it's like from beyond the grave, and so just that whole sequence, really well done, I think.
Oh, it's tremendous. And at the end of the party sequence, after she's got out of the office, she calls Mulder and says, "Meet me at the house." And at that point, Scully tells Mulder the information that Howard is in fact dead, and that was his body.
Yeah, and so they head over to Lauren's, but a couple of people beat them to it. A couple of hitmen, or a hitman and a hit woman in this case.
Yep. Which equal opportunities.
Yeah, I actually liked seeing this. I remember the first time I ever watched this episode, actually, that it was quite something to see these hitmen turn up and for one of them to actually be a woman. You know, we don't think anything of it these days, but back then, it was quite interesting to see them do that. So they attempt to break into the house, and Howard, the ghost of Howard, basically protects Lauren. He strangles the woman from the inside. Basically, you see her larynx being crushed. Again, another really cool special effect. It looks quite disgusting, to be honest. And then we see the other guy getting taken out. He's kind of lifted up in the air.
Well, he gets beaten about first.
Yeah, he gets
a beating.
Takes a bit of a beating, and then he's kind of lifted up in the air, and his neck's twisted, and then he's dropped to the floor.
Well, before that, you see Mulder and Scully pulling up outside the house. And somehow they hear the screams from inside their car, from inside a locked house. And Mulder sprints out the car and runs in the house to see the guys floating in midair.
Yeah. So once
just
again, Scully doesn't get there.
Oh, God, this... Just as he falls to the floor, Scully runs in. And it's just a second too late.
Yeah, but I mean, like, Scully has seen this photo, yeah? You know, Mulder took that photo with Howard Graves on it. Come on, Scully, get with the programme. Yeah. It's undeniable.
Yeah.
You would have to believe that Mulder faked that photo himself just to try and convince you, which would show a real lack of trust in your partner there, I think.
So it goes to like Lauren's questioning after this, when the guys from I'm assuming it's the NSA arrive.
Yeah, so the two tight-lipped agents from earlier on show up again. This is where they basically say, under some duress kind of thing, again, that they want to remain tight-lipped. But Mulder has a bit of a go at them, and they eventually cough up the fact that actually they are investigating the firm that Lauren works for, and that there seems to be some evidence that this firm sold parts to a terrorist organisation, which is the same terrorist organisation that the two so-called muggers worked for. So, but they don't know what Lauren's involvement in it is. So that's really kind of why they're investigating her. But they say that Mulder has essentially blown their investigation by bringing her in. But yeah, quite frankly, she'd be dead if it was, if those hitmen have had their way. Yeah. But yeah, so Mulder basically goes back in, questions him again, questions her again, I should say, and this is when she finally lets slip the information, everything, basically about Howard, about how he treated her like she was his daughter because she reminded him of the daughter he lost many years ago, and that she knows he was killed, and the reason why he was killed. It was because of, well, precisely the reason these two weirdo agents are investigating her. Just
I think about the interrogation room. It's unlike things that we see nowadays where there's the two-way mirror or the one-way mirror where, people are watching from another room. It's a rather large room and seems strange for somebody that should be suspected of killing two people that broke into their house. Because she should be suspected of those killings.
Yeah.
But nobody seems to be questioning her on that whatsoever.
Well, clearly Mulder would be able to vouch in some capacity for her. Certainly from the guy, because, well, he saw the dude floating in the air. Obviously, he's going to get laughed at. Yeah,
how do you vouch for a poltergeist?
Yeah.
So you've got, but then they've got another good scene where you've got Scully who takes the lead and tells her to tell Howard that she loves him and that she can't move on until Howard moves on. Yeah. And this really scene where you're like, God, is Scully's really taken into this. She is buying into it all.
Yeah, and Mulder's almost kind of offended by it.
Do you think so?
Yeah, when his first reaction, I don't think he stays offended, but I think when he's looking at what Scully's doing, he's seeing manipulation in Scully. He's seeing her ability to be able to manipulate, because he knows she doesn't believe this, and I think it takes him off guard. He's quite surprised by it,
I think he's kind of off guard and surprised because he thinks that maybe she has been convinced. He wants her to be like him. He wants her to believe the way he believes. But even though deep down he may know it's not true, he just wants that, or that's what I took from it anyway.
It's just that his first line to her once Lauren's gone is, "You don't believe this, Scully. What are you doing?" So I don't think that he buys for a minute that she has come round to his way of thinking. I think he's just like shocked by the fact that she's willing to go there to get the information.
This is brilliant because I took that as you don't really believe this, do you? Like, I took it as in a sort of like looking for clarification as to whether she was really into it or not.
No.
Yeah.
No, not me.
I just I like the fact that we've both got completely opposite things from it whatsoever.
No, it's good. It's good that you can have two different readings, I think. But yeah, that's my reading. Is that he's a bit shocked by her willingness to manipulate.
Yeah, he's shocked by the fact when she gives the answer. I gathered that response as well. When he says that, you can see he's almost pained by the fact that she's lied about believing in this stuff.
Yeah.
And then, because I've actually got my notes, does Scully really believe? And then my next line of my next one is, nope, sneaky Scully. She just wants to solve a real case for once. She wants to feel like a real FBI agent again, not chasing after some ghost.
So, yeah.
But then the next scene, which I found was quite impressive, because Scully is quite a short person, like in stature to all these guys that are round about her, and she's leading the raid.
Yeah.
She's giving everybody their instructions, and she's raised her voice.
She's in total charge. She's in total control of that room, and she is. Again, this is the reason she was cast. This is what Chris Carter saw in her. She is Clarice Starling. She's small screen. She's small screen.
Go on, Brian. Third time lucky.
She's small screen Clarice Starling, basically, and she's got the weight. She's got the chops to carry that off.
So they go straight into the raid after that. And they can't find any evidence whatsoever. And Dorland, the bad partner, attacks Lorne.
This guy is his own worst enemy. Seriously, there is no way in hell that they would have found that disc in the wall. So even if she tears the office apart like she was doing, because that's what gets his nose bent out of shape. They feel that the case is slipping away. They're not finding the evidence. She starts to lose it. She starts tearing his office up, and he goes off on one. He's like, "You can't do this," and then he, start calling her nasty names. But if he'd have just kept his gob shut and left the office, left him to it, there is no way they would have found that thing. But because he goes on the attack, it forces Howard Graves in his poltergeist farm to come to her defence.
Yes, but she manages to stop Howard from killing him. And talks him into showing us where the evidence are, which is where you see a great scene where the room just getting turned upside down. Digging about. And just as it all dies down, Scully bursts in the door just to see a mess of papers and misses everything yet again. Which I could see becoming very old very quickly if it continues that form.
Yeah.
And they get the disc and everything's A-OK. Dorland is pretty much screwed. The evidence worked, and he's going to be charged with the murder of Howard Graves.
So Lauren moves away. We get this final scene between Mulder, Scully and Lauren in which she moves away, and Mulder starts banging on about this Liberty Bell. He wants to go and see the Liberty Bell. I kind of feel like they didn't really know how to end the conversation between Mulder and Scully, so they just threw in some really random thing. It's a random conversational kind of talking point, but hey, it's mildly amusing. But it says goodbye to Mulder and Scully for this episode.
And then you have Lauren's new job at the end.
Yeah, we get a nice little moment at the end where it looks like the poltergeist issues might still be continuing, but it turns out just to be a gag. It's a train going over that's causing vibrations. Don't know if we needed it really, but it's nice to see that Lauren has moved on. She's happy and she's no longer being chased by a poltergeist.
I like that scene because, especially after the Jersey Devil one, where it gives you the Jersey Devil Junior. It treats it as if it's almost going to be a trait of a stinger at the end of each episode, but it circumvents that by showing you that it's not always going to be what you expect it to be. This is the show for the unexpected after all.
Yeah. But yeah, there you go.
So do you want to give your thoughts on Shadows?
Yeah, after Conduit and Jersey Devil, this is definitely a step up. It's not a flawless episode. It does have, as we've pointed out, some things that some little niggles, but it's solid enough. It's entertaining. It's got some nice little special effects moments in it, some nice little action sequences, a genuinely creepy scene with the vision that Lauren has. So that raises a few hairs on the back of my neck. And I am kind of mildly invested in this character of Lauren. There's something with a show like this, with any kind of detective show, that I often have trouble with, is, that you get a character each week that is only ever going to be in that one episode. And you kind of have to care about them in some way. They kind of become something of a protagonist, although obviously Mulder and Scully remain the main protagonist. So her storyline is... it gets me in a little bit, I guess. I'm mildly kind of won over by it. So, yeah, I'd give this episode a 3-star rating. I think it's an average kind of episode. Does the job. Moves along quite nicely.
Mm-hmm. No, I've got to echo some of what you said there. I think the standout sequence, as you said, is the whole bathtub scene. With the blood, it's stunning. It looks very cinematic. It's not something you would expect on TV. It's one of these times where it actually goes to something kind of gory, but doesn't kind of show you at the same time, but does as well by showing having the blood. And I like all the poltergeist scenes, the big ones anyway. So you have the one with the attackers, the 2 hip people that come in.
That one's definitely the best.
Yeah, that's great as well. And even the one in the office with the paperwork and all that, and the knife. I quite like that. Other than that, I found it to be an okay episode. It's nothing out the ordinary. It's definitely not the worst. It's better than Jersey Devil. It's nowhere near the same level as Squeeze or even the pilot.
No.
But it does its job. And again, I'm very similar as well. I, through this conversation, was thinking 3 stars. And I'm going to go again with that. It does its job.
Yeah.
As we've had episode 6, we don't seem to have an overarching story as yet. You're used to watching these TV shows nowadays where there is maybe episodes of the week, but they still attach to the overarching story, and there's not one that I see that's quite prevalent as yet. Yeah,
you're not going to until... very late in this season, to be honest. Like the last handful of episodes. When we get the sequel to Squeeze, that's when stuff starts coming in, because that's when we really get Cigarette Smoking Man starts coming back. So seeds start getting sowed then, and then especially once we get the last episode of this season, that's it. Boom. We're away. That essentially kicks off what will become the overarching story. So we'll get a lot more of the mythology episodes, as Chris Carter calls them, as the fans call them, once we've hit that last episode of the first season.
Okay, so the next episode is episode 7, Ghost in the Machine.
Yeah.
Is this a good one, a bad one, a different one?
If my memory serves me correct, I think this is probably going to be another 3-star episode. I think it's going to be one that with scenes in it that entertain us, maybe some characters in there that entertain us, but overall, I think some of the elements are going to fall a bit flat on it. But it's the episode after that I'm really looking forward to. One of my favourites.
Right, which is Ice.
Which is Ice, yes.
Okay, because when I think of X-Files and what I remember of it, I remember certain Monsters of the Week as one part of it, but very much Aliens as well.
Yeah.
And as we look at these 6 episodes, we've had 2 which really sort of touch upon the alien aspect of the show.
Yeah, the next one to do that, I think, is EBE. So I don't think that's too far away. Oh, there's Fallen Angel as well, actually. So Fallen Angel and EBE are very much in that realm.
So Fallen Angel is 10 and EVE is 11.
EBE.
Oh, yeah, right, okay, 17.
Yeah, there is an episode called Eve, but there's also an episode called EBE.
Right, and so quarter of a way through this season 1, how are you enjoying it so far?
I'm really enjoying it, actually, because like you and me, we do the film podcast as well. Obviously, this is Brits on Flicks. We do films, and I am actually enjoying this more. I think I'm very happy to keep on doing the films because I just love talking about movies. But it's very rare that I get to talk about what was my favourite series of all time at one point. It's still in my top 5 series of all time. So it's just great to be able to go back, revisit it, and hear your thoughts, because like I say, you're not the die-hard kind of X-Files fanatic. You can't kind of recite these episodes in the way that I can. So it's interesting hearing your kind of fresher perspective on it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'm really enjoying it. I'm watching an episode, and when I see something like Squeeze, I'm like, oh, this is brilliant, fantastic. When I see something like Conduit, I'm like, oh, brilliant, fantastic, this is awful. I can't wait to tear this one to bits. And I'm looking for the fun stuff to talk about, like in the last episode where you've got the groundskeeper at the cemetery. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this guy. Oh my goodness,
groundskeeper Willie.
Yeah, it's just like, wow, I can't wait to talk about this. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's nice, and I like to discover sort of new avenues in the episode that I didn't quite catch on as well. Like we had that scene where we both take different things away from it. When Scully pretends to believe in the woman.
Yeah.
And even though it's done a singular way, we had polar opposites in how that conversation went about.
Yeah.
And there was no discussion about who was right or wrong. I was right. But we just kind of talked. But we both had our opinions. But even when after that scene was done, we had a similar conclusion to that scene. We both felt that Mulder was shocked with the outcome of it. Scully would lie about that. So it's great to see the different sort of aspects that can be taken from that. And I'm looking forward to where it's going. I'm really looking forward to Ice, even though I don't know anything about it, because you've built it up so much.
I honestly think you're going to love it. I predict that you're going to give it a 5-star rating.
One of my favourite movies is The Thing, which you said it runs very close to. So
yeah,
it's got a lot to live up to.
Yeah.